That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Frank Tarzeski, inviting you to listen to Music Matters every Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. right here on WRLR 98.3 at their FM dial. I play polkas, I play country, I play crazy songs, I play requests, and jazz. That's Music Matters 1 to 4 p.m. right here on WRLR 98.3.
Welcome to the Dave Mierswa Show, the cutting-edge talk show about legal, political, and current issues. Practicing in both Wisconsin and Illinois, David Mierswa is the leading trial attorney, bringing nearly 2 decades of business law, family law, personal injury, and estate planning experience to you. The Dave Mierswa Show, about the people, for the people, and bringing justice to the people. The Dave Mierswa Show, its guests, agents, and WRLR are not rendering any legal advice. All listeners are encouraged to seek legal advice from properly licensed and qualified professionals.
Welcome back to the Dave Mierswa Show. I hope everyone is having a great Sunday. We just got back from a break here, so I hope you stayed tuned in to me. And for all you new listeners that are just tuning in, this is the Dave Mierswa Show. I'm your host, Dave Mierswa, of course. And I am doing a 2-hour show from 12 noon until 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. I have quite a few listeners that are starting to listen online. So again, that's 12 noon until 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, CST. So it is my privilege to bring to you a lot of my 2015 audio clips in my audio shows that I talked about. Also, I'm going to be bringing to you 2016 predictions of what's going to happen on the social, legal, and political scene here in America. So let's get back into it. I was just talking about Officer Lieutenant Glinowitz, who committed suicide, and Fox Lake, who elaborately staged his own suicide in order for his family to gain benefits. And there's some legal questions out there whether she's entitled to any of the death benefits. In my opinion, I would say no. Number 2 is the family entitled to pension benefits? So I know that's winding its way through the legal system. On that one, unfortunately, I bet you she'll be able to collect her husband's pension, which a lot of you may or may not disagree, but the law is, I think, clear on that, where she will be able to collect it. I don't think she should be able to, but I think she'll be able to. So that was one of the huge outstanding issues. And then also, towards the end of that last audio clip, they were investigating other people that were involved with his extortion and stealing money from Fox Lake, and basically stealing from Lake County and the citizens of Fox Lake, stealing right out of your pocket. Unbelievable. So just when you didn't think this stuff can happen, it does. And I'm telling you, there is no one with an imagination that can come up with this stuff, especially his suicide. So, at least, and again, this is my opinion, you may disagree with me, but at least we're not going to have a trial and waste $500,000 to $1 million putting this guy on trial. So at least he did us that favor. So some of the other topics that I talked about on the radio were VA veterans and what the Veterans Administration and what's going on there. As you recall, in 2015, there was a huge VA scandal, and I bet you forgot about it. With all the holidays and all the family, I understand that. I completely understand that you get engulfed with what you do, but that's why I play this year-end review of the issues that are still going on facing our military. So I want to give a great thank you to all of our military veterans that are out there, and also the active and also their families. So a big shout out and a big thank you to all of our veterans in active military out there and their families. So thank you for your service of making this country safe. I can't thank you enough. I see so many people that forget about the veterans out there, including, unfortunately, our own president. Our own president never served in the military, nor does his family truly appreciate the sacrifices that our veterans make. Our veterans not only give up their lives, but they give up life and limb. There are so many veterans coming back that are hurt. There's a new movie out by Will Smith that kind of talks about concussions during football games. But with all the latest technology and the gear that our men and women wear overseas, a lot of the veterans are surviving these attacks and these IEDs, and they are living. And then, unfortunately, they are living maimed. A lot of their legs and their arms and all that are literally blown off. They are also suffering these head traumas that they come back and they're not going. They're going to be able to live a life, but maybe not the full life that they had before. And at the beginning of this year, the scandal broke about what was happening at the VA, the Veterans Affairs Administration. And what was happening was our veterans were being put on these lists that weren't officially being given to Congress. So it was being hidden underneath the table. And our veterans were put on waiting lists for years and years and years just to get basic veterans benefits and medical care. Medical care. Our veterans served both in this country and other countries across the United States. And our president stood by the VA administrator head until he resigned. Our president had he did not really look into this until the media got a hold of it. And then finally, he stood up and said something. But has he said anything since then? No. That's another reason for this radio show. I'm going to keep this issue alive in 2016. So this is a salute to all the veterans out there. I'm not going to forget about you. Your voice will be heard in 2016 and beyond. Believe me, they will be heard. So let's play my first audio clip here on the Veterans Affair and what happened and this huge scandal that Obama seems to have glazed over. So let's play my first audio clip.
This morning, President Obama's hand-picked investigator visits the Phoenix Veterans Hospital. That's where at least 40 patients may have died because of delayed medical care.
In a CBS News poll out this morning, 33% of Americans blame the Veterans Affairs Department and Secretary Eric Shinseki for the scandal. 28% blame local VA hospitals. Major Garrett is at the White House, where the president is defending the VA secretary and promising to fix the VA's health system. Major, good morning.
Good morning. Most veterans groups and some Democrats on Capitol Hill were dissatisfied with President Obama's continued support for Veterans Affairs Secretary Eric Shinseki. Despite the president's visible anger, critics say the crisis within the VA healthcare system requires more focus and accountability. President Obama is sticking with the status quo, ignoring calls for firings or demotions within the Veterans Administration.
I know that people are angry and want swift reckoning. I sympathize with that. But we have to let the investigators do their job and get to the bottom of what happened. Once we know the facts, I assure you, if there is misconduct, it will be punished.
Mr. Obama said it is unclear just how bad things are.
If these allegations prove to be true, it is dishonorable, it is disgraceful, and I will not tolerate it, period.
Not enough for some Democrats.
There was no urgency. Mr. President, we need urgency. We need you to roll up our sleeves and get into these hospitals.
Scott and fellow Congressman John Barrow are the two Democrats so far who have called for Shinseki's resignation. 24 Republicans have said the Veterans Secretary must go.
I think it was a mistake for the president not to ask him to resign. I think that would have sent the clearest signal the White House can send that there's been not enough accountability thus far at that level in our bureaucracy.
The president initially said nothing about hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonuses paid to senior VA administrators accused of mismanagement or poor performance.
What about bonuses for those implicated in mismanagement, Mr. President?
We're gonna find out. My idea
Is that
is,
you?
listen, if somebody's mismanaged or engaged in misconduct, not only do I not want them getting bonuses, I want them punished.
Hours after the president said that, the VA announced it was canceling one bonus worth nearly $9,000. It had been paid to Sharon Hellman, director of the Phoenix VA healthcare facility, where veterans may have died waiting for healthcare appointments. The president's deputy chief of staff, Rob Neighbors, who's conducting his own investigation into all this, arrives at that facility later this morning. Nora?
Great question, Major. Thank you.
Did you hear that? Again, our president gets in and he is the best teleprompt speaker president I have ever seen in the last 50 years. He gets up there and does his little dance and says that he'll get to the bottom of it, make it a priority, and that if there's criminal conduct, we'll investigate that. Well, Mr. President Obama, when you went to vacation in Hawaii for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, our veterans are still dying. Our veterans are still not getting their VA benefits. He goes on vacation. And again, at the beginning of the year, you just heard it from his own voice. He was going to look into it. And only the head administrator resigned. That's it. No one has been charged criminally by the Justice Department. And let me spend a couple minutes on the Justice Department. For most of President Obama's presidency, Eric Holder was in charge of the Justice Department, who would head any kind of criminal investigation on this. He chose to do nothing. Our president chose to do nothing. At one facility, over 50 people died that we know of, just in one snapshot. I bet you if we dig deeper, that there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of veterans that have died over the last 10, 20 years. This goes back beyond President Obama. But Mr. President Obama, this happened on your watch. You recently, 2 days ago, gave a speech on unfinished business on your legacy and your presidency. You know what he talked about? He talked about gun control. He did talk about fixing the VA and saving lives. There are still lists out there of people not getting their benefits, therefore they are dying. They're not getting the medical attention that they need, and they are suffering and they are dying. And not only that, our president seems to have glossed over that, just like all of the other video and audio points he made in the last 6 years. I tell you, he started off his weekly address being fired up. Mr. President, I got more energy than you could ever imagine. I'm not going to let the American people forget all of the things that you fell down on, that you tripped over, and you were hoping that these issues were going to go away. They are not going to go away. I'm going to keep on these issues for our veterans, for the veterans' families, and for all the veterans that were murdered. I choose that word, murdered, by the Veterans Administration. And yet no criminal charges have been levied against any of the people running the VA. Unbelievable. So I hope that you listeners and friends out there are starting to feel a little outraged. And I understand when we went through Christmas in the holidays. It's a time for family. What if one of your family members was one of these veterans that died? You think you're going to be enjoying Christmas? Going to a funeral? I don't think so. What about bringing in the new year when your father, who's an amputee, can't get the continuing medical coverage that he needs through the VA office? You're not going to have too happy of a new year, are you? So once again, this show, I am not going to let the president forget. I am not going to let anyone forget any of these issues. I'm just getting started. So, Mr. President, you think that you're all fired up? Well, all my listeners are going to get fired up for 2016. This show is going to continue to grow. And again, on my radio show, I had Dan Jakes, a veteran who was almost killed in a terrorist attack in the 70s, almost gave his life. And our country put him on a wait list. They put him on a wait list and he almost died. He almost died from that. That was live on my show. Where else are you going to go to listen to these kind of issues? These in-your-face, cutting-edge topics. That's right. This show. All my previous shows are on law540.com. All right, let me bring up another audio clip here. Here is a Vietnam veteran who took 8 years to get PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. All our veterans coming back, a lot of them have PTSD. And we all seem to forget about that. They have a hard time coming back and adjusting to civilian life. It takes months, if not years, from going into a high impact emotional and physical zone, not just in a combat zone, but in the military. It takes a while to unwind. I get wound up for this radio show. It takes me at least 30 minutes to an hour when my adrenaline finally comes down. And this is just a radio show. I can't imagine being in a combat zone for 6 months to a year, and then you're expected to come back to the United States and just go back to a normal life when bullets are zinging around you, your buddies are being blown up before you, and yet our own VA is just starting to recognize PTSD. Now, they've gotten a little bit better about it, but why did it take so long? You also heard from Dan Jakes. And I want to explain David Jakes. I want to say a shout out to David Jakes and his son Josh Jakes, who are DJs on Cast and Blast every Saturday at 7 a.m. He's the one that started me with WRLR. I had Josh on, who was on my radio show last week. That's posted last week. But getting back, Dan Jakes is David Jakes' brother. That's how I get connected with people. So that's how I know that connection there. And Dan Jakes suffered and almost died. He had to go in and fight with an attorney to get an outside surgery outside the VA. So this issue has not gone away. It is still out there. A lot of our veterans still need this medical care. Now, in 2015, they issued them a temporary card to go seek medical help outside the VA. But it's only good for so long and you have to renew it. What kind of crap is that? Why can't they get a voucher and go to any doctor where they want? And then the doctor gets reimbursed by our government. We're spending billions of dollars on all these other refugees coming into America, and we can't even take care of our own veterans. Unbelievable. Mr. President, maybe when you get back from Hawaii, maybe someone will call in to you and remind you of your duties as Commander-in-Chief of taking care of our security and needs of our families and our veterans and the families that surround the veterans. And maybe, just maybe, you'll put aside your political agenda and actually lead for once. And actually stand up and lead for once of America. Maybe in 2016 you'll do that. And maybe you'll check back into, maybe you'll check your teleprompter on the VA and what's going on with that. Maybe you'll make that a priority. Probably not, judging by what I've seen in the last 7 years, but maybe, Mr. President, you'll do that. Let me play the next audio clip, and then I got to go to break.
It looks like the VA now has another problem on its hands.
An independent government agency that protects whistleblowers sent a report to the White House today revealing years of neglect at hospitals nationwide. In one case, a veteran with a psychiatric condition waited 8 years for a psychiatric evaluation. Another case showed a patient only received one exam after being at a Massachusetts hospital for 7 years. Nearly 50 more claims are being investigated. More problems with the treatment of veterans when they get home. A new report shows the government just doesn't have what it needs to treat veterans with PTSD. It was released by the Institute of Medicine and ordered by Congress back in 2010. The report showed even after billions of dollars had been spent for PTSD treatment, lack of reporting and evaluation for veterans hurt the efforts. The report noted PTSD could be better treated if the VA and Department of Defense worked together.
So you heard that. The Department of Defense really has nothing to do with veterans after they get out of service. And 55% of our national budget goes into defense. And you can't spare 2 to 5 or 10 or 20 billion dollars, whatever it takes, to outsource these medical needs of the veterans. You know, unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And if you heard Dan Jakes, it just makes you want to cry. And I get infuriated. I get passionate. I get infuriated. So maybe some of your friends and listeners out there are going, and there's a lot of veterans that listen as well. So maybe you're going to stand up for your brothers and your sisters in arms, and you're going to revisit this issue with the veterans. I can't say enough. I try to do pro bono work for veterans as well. So I try to do what I can. And all you listeners out there, take some time to help out a veteran as well. Once again, I got to go to break. We're at the end of the first hour of this end of the year 2015 review. And unbelievable. Time just flies here in the studio. So let me play some break here and some messages from you from some of our sponsors. Then I'll be back. I'm going to have a bunch of more topics here. So hang in, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake Heights, Illinois. You're listening to 98.3 FM, WRLR LP, Round Lake Heights, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Grads